Awesome. Well, hey guys, welcome to another episode of Wisdom and Wealth. I'm your host, Corey Proctor. I'm sitting here with somebody pretty cool. Um, Shaler Smith, one of our advisors, close friend of his, Dan Dean from Phillips, Craig, and Dean. Kind of a big deal trio, right? That came
I
about.
guess kind of a big deal in my world.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a big deal in all worlds, but it's been a great journey.
Well, I mean, after doing some digging on you and hearing Shaler talk about it, I'm like, holy cow, this guy's legit. This ain't no nursing home, you know. What I mean, but I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
Well, glad to do it. Joy to be with you.
Heck yeah. Well, tell me if you don't mind. Tell me the story. We went to lunch not too long ago. I got to hear this for myself, but if you for share with our people that are listening right now, how the heck did? I mean, you have 10 Dove Awards for your trio. I mean, you can tell me how many hits you've had, but like if you go to we go to a non-denominational church, Milestone in Keller, Texas here, and I mean, like several of your songs are mainstream songs that you hear in
Yeah,
church.
we've been really blessed. We recorded our first album in 1992, and this is unheard of in today's world. But our first album had 4 number 1 songs and a number 3 song, so 5 songs charted. And over the course of our careers, we've had, I think it's 21 number 1 songs on, Christian AC or Inspo Radio, which is pretty phenomenal. And especially considering the story of how it all happened is pretty amazing.
Well, tell me that
Well,
again. What
we
was it?
were we were just 3 church boys. I studied music in college. I started writing songs in my early 20s, and like any kid, I saw a singing group getting off of a bus one time at a concert, and I thought, man, if I could ever do that, that's what I want to do. And so started pursuing that dream, songwriting, singing, going anywhere they would invite me to sing. A lot of times there was no such thing as, at that point in my life, an honorarium or a contract of what you're going to get. There was a few times I actually paid to go sing places. I didn't know that going out, but that's the way it turned out. But it was, I guess I was around my early 30s. I had some really great success with a solo project. In fact, here in Dallas, they played my song on the radio that was from that project, and I had some nominal success in other regional areas of the country. And I thought, man, this is it. I'm on my way. I get invited to go sing at in Nashville at what they call the New Artist Showcase. Everybody's telling me, this is it. Nobody ever sings at this without signing a label deal. And so I sang, I came back home, waited for the phone to ring. It didn't ring. 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So I told my wife, you know, I'm early 30s now. I've barked up this tree long enough. It's time to start thinking about something else. And I promise you it wasn't, but about 2 weeks later, I get this call from my friend Randy Phillips in Austin. He says, "Hey, let's do a trio project, and we'll each invest about $5,000, and we'll travel just enough to break even." That was our big dream, just break even. And like I said, we most groups, most people when they travel, and of course I have this story. I worked really hard for 10 to 15 years of going anywhere and everywhere I could, but most groups to do an album, they go out and burn up territory all over the country, and they're singing 5 or 6 years together, and then they get a label deal. We had sang 3 times together when we got our label deal. 3 times. how do you explain that? I don't know how to explain it, except we all had worked hard on a solo level. All the other guys had done solo projects for writing songs, and I think the record company looked and said, "These guys are working hard. They have written some good songs. It's worth the gamble." They had no idea what was gonna happen, neither did we, and it's been a great ride. We just are celebrating, this month, our 33rd year, and we've got 10 or 12 concerts scheduled before the year's up, so, I mean, it's pretty crazy to think we're still singing after all these years.
That I mean, it's a crazy comparison, but like I think guys like Metallica are
Yeah.
still jamming.
Yeah, still out there doing it. Uh, it's crazy, and I think the great thing about our group is, I know lots of Christian groups that have been going maybe for as long as we have, but the original members are no longer there. It's hard to replace Phillips, Craig, or Dean. You have to find somebody with that name, but all 3 guys are still the same. We Some of the same band members are with us, and, that's pretty amazing.
We'll talk about that because I, I mean, although not at your level, right? I've been in a band, and all of a sudden, everybody's got the opinions in the world, and
Yeah.
which can be a explosion.
Well, I think there's several things that worked in our favor. First of all, and this is very unique, we all had jobs on staff at churches. The first year we were driving down the road in a van and we said, what are we gonna do if this thing were to get big on us? Are we gonna quit our church jobs? And we made an agreement. No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna stay connected to the local church, which we did. And I think that several things happened. Number one, we weren't burning up the road doing 220 dates a year. And we had space because we lived in 3 different cities: St. Louis, Dallas, and Austin. That's still the case. All of us are still connected with the same churches we were 32 years ago. And we all became lead pastors of those churches at some point. It's pretty crazy. But I think it kept us grounded, number one. It kept us from getting in those little spats that you do if you're on around each other too much, and you start wearing on each other. We were always delighted to see each other when we hooked up for even a 40-day tour, Uh, it was always a delight to see each other again. Then we'd be back home and wouldn't see each other for a month or so. So,
It probably helped your marriage too,
oh,
right?
well, absolutely. I think being on the road can be a killer
Yeah.
for your family and your marriage. Really can. It's in fact, early on when we were doing some of the 40-date tours, you come back off the road and you kind of have to work your way back into the family because they've learned how to live life without you. But we didn't do too many of the 40-date tours. We realized that's a strain on ourselves and on our families. So we pretty well reined it in and said, let's, 10-day max on the road and then we're back home.
Do you think that? I mean, do you think that partly contributed to the success on the road too? I mean,
Absolutely.
limited asset essentially.
Absolutely. We were not saturating any market. So I know groups that were on the road all the time. So they would be, just say one of our top markets was Grand Rapids, Michigan. If you're going in there 2 or 3 times a year versus once every 14 months, it makes a huge difference in the draw of the crowd and who comes to see you because you've had a new album come out probably since you've been there last. And so, yeah, I think that was a major part of it.
Okay. Well, I mean, so what if you're telling a young guy right now who's in that space, what would you tell somebody who is like, and it might be an artist, it could be anything, but who's going through that? Because I mean, I think we've both seen some people crash and burn in any category, but especially when you're traveling or even trying to make it in the music industry.
Yeah, well, any, I would say to anybody out there, you really have to prioritize what the important things are. And uh, first and foremost, is God, and then comes family. Your family, you don't realize, I think, sometimes how critical family is. I got a cousin right now that's hit it big in the country world. His name is Shane Smith and the Saints. He just had his first boy, and I love Shane, but I tell Shane all the time, Shane, don't burn out on the road, man. You got that little boy now, and you gotta be home a lot more, you know. So for anybody, you gotta make priorities in your life of what the important things are and stick to it. Because honestly, and the industry has changed so much, but the booking agents, the merch, the road managers, the band, all these people are depending on you to be on the road. They make money when you're on the road. You're not on the road, they're not making money. But at the end of the day, you know, we love them, but that's not the driving force in your life is keeping a musician happy somewhere that's on the road with you or a road manager. It's the people you're going to spend the rest of your life with. They're the important ones.
Now, anytime, like I got a buddy of mine, Steve Trevino, who's a comedian, his family goes on the road with him all over the place. Did you see that much when?
Yeah, some. I remember my oldest son went out on tour with us one time he had a week out of school and we took him on and made him one of the roadies. He was carrying cable around and, it was a good experience for him, but it's really hard when your whole tour bus is full. You got 12 bunks on there and every space is taken. My son had to sleep in the back of the bus on one of which he could do easily, but taking the whole family was a real challenge. So didn't do that often.
Well, it probably helped to I probably separate work and home, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
But what? So when you're doing this, I mean, how did that you guys just keep? Is that a normal thing? You guys keep releasing albums every year or every other year?
Well, we just I want to say a year and a half ago did our 14th album. And of course there's spin-offs off all that. The record companies will come out with a best of and or collection of songs. But probably we all kind of feel like this is probably our last one. Uh, Crazy thing is, they're both still lead pastors at churches in Austin and St. Louis. I just retired 5 years ago, so I'm doing a solo project that will come out here in a month or so. We'll see what happens.
Nice.
I have the freedom to do that now. It's been a while. I had a whole bunch of songs I'd written, and so we went in with some great producers back in the summer, and this week I'll sign a contract with a label that's decided to take a little gamble with me. We'll see what happens.
Oh,
So,
announcement. Let's
yeah,
congratulations.
and I haven't even told that to anybody. You're the first one, so
I'll take it. I'll
right
take
on the podcast here.
it. Hey, well, this will release later, so the news will come out
Cool.
first. So, um, we'll talk about this. So, artistry is a different deal, right? And so, talking with my buddies who are in the country music scene, or even in other scenes, but a part of the entertainment world, essentially. They talk about like my agent takes 10%, this guy takes X%, and this guy takes X%. And what hearing some of these, I'm like, gracious, by the end of this thing, you get stripped pretty easy. What I mean, how do you manage, if you don't mind me asking, like how do you manage that, or was that a learning experience for you
Oh,
guys
it
too?
was it was a it was a huge. I mean, we were three little naive guys that go into this deal. Honestly, here's the truth. The very first project we had, they spent $30,000, which is nothing in a recording. So they were not taking a huge gamble, but it paid off big time. And this is how naive we were. We just on probably on the sales of that album, they made probably $2 million. Okay. Just the sales. Because I think we ended up selling 140,000 copies of our very first project. Well, that's a lot of money. That's not counting. They had our publishing, they had, you know, all kind of stuff they have. And we're so naive that we asked for a meeting with the head guys. And later we're going back thinking, they're probably thinking, oh my God, these guys are going to come in, they're going to renegotiate, they're going to, and we go into the meeting and we ask for $5,000 more on our next record budget. And I'm sure when we walked out, there's a guy who's like, oh, we love these guys. But you know, 3 or 4 albums in, and especially our very first tour, we get the budget sheet before we go out on tour, and before we leave town, we're 5,000 in the hole on the budget, and we're like, we can't do this. They're like, oh, you're going to make it up on merch sales. You know, this is the way it is when you're paying your dues. You have to. Well, you go down through there, and everybody's scraping their percentage off before you ever leave town, practically. And so you start going, wait a minute here. The tail is wagging the dog. So we started making some changes. Number one, we looked at percentages and we went, we could hire a full-time person to manage us and pay them a salary rather than paying them a percentage. They would have our interest at heart, probably more if they're working full-time. So we did that. We started paying for our own recording masters so that we owned them. The big deal there, you know, it's a lot of money, but hey, when they're making money, and you can pay for them. We've never, to my knowledge, we've never had a project that did not recoup. So the funny story out there, the comedian Jeff Foxworthy,
Yeah.
you know, sells millions and millions of comedy albums, and those albums probably cost 5,000 to make because it's you and a microphone. And they one year at one of the awards where he won an award, he got up and he said, I just want to thank the record company, and he named the record company. They tell me backstage we've almost recouped. But we learned that the record companies could keep you. They had ways of keeping you owing them money, even though you're making them thousands and thousands of dollars. So you learn along the way. We got to take care of ourselves here. And
what would they keep you owing?
uh, you know, I'll give you this for an example. Our second album cost around 220,000,
Yeah.
where we went from 30,000 to 220,000. And I don't think they're intentionally. I think they know ways to keep you drawing out how much they're paying on the project until by the time it's time to do the next album, you're finally getting that one, the second one or the third one paid off. And it's all these percentages that you don't know a lot of. In fact, we had a record company executive that left our first company we were with, and we went to him and said, if you had any advice to us as a group, what would it be? And he said, audit, audit, audit. In other words, keep the record company honest with the numbers they're showing you. And so we did that too. Did that several times.
What happened when you asked? Were they honest in giving it up?
Yes. And we always got money that we didn't know we had coming to us.
Really?
Always.
Oh man.
So I'm not saying they're dishonest. I'm saying you have to work at keeping them to date on what they're supposed to be paying you, et cetera.
Yeah.
Um,
That kind of goes, people get away with what you let them.
right.
Right. And
Exactly.
I mean, we could be well intentioned all day, but yeah, everybody's got some um, not great nature in them
Yeah.
to a degree.
Yeah.
And so I think keeping that accountability is pretty key.
Yes. I think one of the things that I've really gleaned from this process is this. My father-in-law used to say this all the time. He'd say, Dan, the world belongs to those who show up. Keep showing up. Just show up. And I think that's true. I think artists sometimes have a hard time with this because artists are motivated in the creative flow of life. When you're a songwriter, we used to write songs when it was time to record an album. That's when you need songs. But there's songwriters now that I write with in Nashville that are full time. One of the guys is named Tony Woods, and he's told me the other day he's written over 800 songs that have been recorded by label artists. That's Christian and country, and I don't know how many genres. But he told me one time, he said, Dan, this is a guy that goes to work every morning to write songs. And he said, Dan, some people want to get this right. Some people wait until they're inspired to write songs. I write songs until I get inspired. So, in other words, he goes to work every day. He may not have a drop of inspiration, but he's going to stay in there until something comes to him that sparks a creative flow or an idea. And just show up, show up and do what you're supposed to do.
That that reminds me, this is you're probably a good reader, right? Like
Yes,
I love to
love to
read.
read, love to read.
Um, why am I blank? Atomic Habits,
I haven't read that one. I've heard about it.
excellent book. Um, but in that book, it references a study, a photography professor at a university. It doesn't cite the school, but in the study, he separated the class into two groups, and he said, one, he goes, you will be the quality group, and he goes, you can only take 3 pictures the whole semester. So they have to be the best pictures. Pictures is all you can take. And the other half, you're going to be the quantity group. You have to take as many as you can. Whoever produces the best pictures gets the grade, essentially. And what he found out was on the quality group, they were picking at every little possible thing they could pick at and waiting and waiting and waiting while and messing with their dials, while the quantity group were taking so many pictures. They got so good at handling their equipment and tinkering with all the nuances that they were actually the ones that produced a better quality than the quality group.
Amazing.
And we kind of, we hear quality over quantity. Well, it's actually a mix of both.
It is.
Right.
Mix of both.
And so that's what it sounds like, is like he produced quality because of his repetition at the specific task.
Yeah, another thing I found interesting with my songwriting buddies that write, because I've written a whole lot of songs, not as many as they have, but I asked them one time, I said, "Do you ever walk out of a room thinking that was a mediocre song we just wrote?" Not one of them said that. They all said, "No." We walk out thinking, "Man, we just wrote a great song." And I was like kind of stunned by that, but they go in expecting they're going to get something good when they go in. And I think your expectation kind of drives the results you have. This is going to be good. This is going to be a good day. I'm attacking this thing and going to get good results, good positive energy,
Do you feel like that's how you guys led? I mean, especially after the first album, how
Oh,
you led to those number ones?
I tell you what, we had no clue we were going to have number one songs. No clue. And our first album was done actually in a garage studio in Nashville. Our vocal chamber was a restroom that was attached to that garage with all three of us singing around one mic. It would be, Randy, back up 2 feet. You're too loud. Dan, move in a little. It was just constant. Uh, and Randy, back. I can't. I'm in the tub right now because there was a shower. There was a tub shower in that. So we had no. But once we saw that, we can do this. I think we were incredibly motivated and looked at every album like, "This is gonna be better than the last one. We gotta make it better. We gotta make the songs better." About the 3rd album, we write most of the material we use on our albums, but about the 3rd album, we discovered co-writing, which we had not done. Uh, we'd always just written songs by ourselves, took our music to another level. Uh, in fact, I tell you a funny story is this is a couple years ago. I was on a plane and I landed at DFW and my phone just started blowing up. And somebody sent me a video of what was happening. It was The Voice. And is it Nick Jonas? One of the Jonas brothers was on The Voice. And there was a guy singing on The Voice. And when he got through, he said something about being a pastor's son. And Nick Jonas goes, "You know what? I'm a preacher's kid. Have you ever heard of Phillips, Craig and Dean? Mercy came running." He started singing one of our songs. And he sang like 8 or 10 words of the song, and that we're, like, freaking out. This is Nick Jonas singing a song that was on one of our I think our 5th album when he was just a kid. He sang it with his dad, and, you know, your again, your expectations are that I think we're gonna have positive results, and we're gonna see God do great things with this. We're believing for that to happen, and that's why I'm doing an album at my age right now. Something good's gonna happen. I don't know
Well,
what it is.
I appreciate the attitude. I mean, I mean, I think that's a tough thing that our world deals with, right? Is we have a lot of bad attitudes. It's so easy to go into a bad attitude and take a
Yeah.
poor approach, poor me approach, and just by that outlook alone, you'll change a lot. But before we wrap up, if you had something you could tell yourself 10 or 20 years ago that would be a no-brainer that you should have started doing then that you do today, like what would that be?
Oh, uh, there's probably several things, but uh, I think one of the things, I would say would be to live life a little more relaxed, uh, and not as filled with stress. You know, you do your best to make things happen, and then God blesses what you do, and all these things mingle in, and still we allow again negativity and stress and bad thought patterns to come in, and what's going to happen if this doesn't, and sometimes it can consume our our mind energy and our mental capacity to really think positive. You've heard me talking about thinking positive a lot today because a lot of my life was my dad grew up very poor. He was, we never had a lot of money when I was a kid. We never had all we wanted to eat. It was like we never went hungry, but so I kind of grew up with this a little bit of a poverty mentality that am I gonna what's gonna happen? Am I gonna be able to pay the bills? Am I gonna be able to make it? And kind of focused in on that. Even after I had some success, sometimes I had to struggle with that. So I'd say let go of the stress and enjoy life a little more. Uh, Life is too short to spend it on negative, you know, wondering what's gonna happen, worry. I'm not saying don't take care of stuff, but I am saying most of the stuff we worry about takes care of itself if we just do what we're supposed to do. And most of our stress comes from the blessings we have. I remember one time going into the house after something on the pool broke down at our house in Colleyville, griping to my wife. She said, "Do you realize you're griping about the pool?" Not many people have a pool. You got a pool, which is true. Most of our stress comes from the blessings God's given us.
Well, last question. So, dealing on the wealth side, last piece of advice you can give to somebody who is, I guess, a super practical application towards their financial life. And I really
Ah,
appreciate what you said earlier, audit. But if there was something specific that helped
well,
you,
I think one of the things that my wife and I early on have tried to live our life by, and it's worked well for us. And again, it's something my father-in-law told me, but live life with the 80-10-10 rule, which is live on 80%, save 10%, give 10%. Wherever you choose to give it, can never go wrong with giving money to good causes. And we've lived our life by that. Um, sometimes, I mean, early in our marriage, I can remember a few times the giving would be hard because we may have to. I remember one time we sat down with our budget and we gave up cable so we could be able to give 10%. And a lot of people wouldn't do that, but this is a decision. We're going to give 10% of our income away. Every time I get a check, it's going to somebody else, to church or to a charitable cause and I think it's a good way to live life. I think if you do that consistently, you'll end up in a good place.
heck yeah, I like that. I can attest to that. Shoot, Dan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. This is a treat. Where do you have your socials or anything that you
Well,
point people to?
right now, probably the best place to keep up with is Dan underscore PCD. That's my Instagram. We have our own webpage, phillipscraiganddean.com. And we have a Facebook page. Uh, just type in Phillips, Craig, and Dean. You'll find us there.
I just like the way you said that.
Yeah.
Facebook page.
Facebook page. I've got to get better at social media. I know I do. Uh, I'm not the greatest poster in the world. I figure people don't want to know what I ate for dinner last night, but if there's something of substance, I'll put it on there.
If it's
So.
good, I want to know what you ate.
True, I guess.
Hey, Dan, thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much for having me.
It's an honor.
And my honor to be here.
Heck yeah.